Labyrinth, the Forever War. This highly anticipated second expansion to Labyrinth, the War on Terror has just come out, and we're really excited to see how it takes into account the events of the last 5 years. This is Legendary Tactics. Labyrinth Forever War builds on the Labyrinth Awakening expansion that came out a few years ago. That expansion, Awakening, was quite a different game in many ways. It was built on the original system in some exciting ways. Forever War builds that a little bit further, but more to just reflect the passage of time and the way things have changed in the last few years. While Pakistan is still a threat, and potentially Syria as well, the focus is much more on Iran in this game. For example, in the 2016 scenario, there is one WMD that starts in the Syria space, but the other two begin in the Iran space. And in the 2017 scenario, Syria has the one WMD in its space. And of the two that started in Iran, one actually starts as an available plot for the jihadist, which is a big change. It gives a WMD to the jihadi player right off the bat. There are certain game events that bring WMDs into play. Otherwise, they're generally not available to the jihadist player until those events happen. Some examples of those are Iranian withdrawal, loose chemicals, and JCPOA events. Of course, if Iran falls under Islamist rule, then the WMDs go to the jihadist player. They become available for use. Each and every time the US player successfully alerts or removes or reveals a WMD plot for any reason, even if it's by event, or even if that WMD is not available to the jihadist player yet, the US player gains 1 prestige. Now, as they added in Awakening, there are some country mats that you need to be aware of. First of all, Iran. The status of Iran is determined by the scenario, and it can be either a special case country with WMD capability, which is in the 2016 scenario, or a regular Muslim country, as in the 2017 scenario. If the jihadi player plays the Iranian withdrawal or the JCPOA event to flip Iran over and it becomes a regular Muslim country, it remains that way for the rest of the game. It's a resource level 2 country, oil exporter, Shia mix, Muslim country, and it starts as a fair adversary. Any other pieces or markers that are there in the space at that moment remain where they are. If Iran ever becomes a neutral or an ally, you can remove any trade embargo marker. And for the Forever War 2016, 2017, and extended campaign scenarios, well, it's a regular Muslim country. The US can only perform a regime change in Iran if it's an Islamist rule and the US is hard, with a prestige of high or very high, and the world has to be 100% behind it at hard 3. Of course, the US can play the US regime change policy event, which gives them more flexibility. Mali and Nigeria use the same rules and setup as in Awakening, so you use their country mats. Syria uses the same rules and setups as in Awakening, but only has 1 WMD marker. Unless specified in a scenario, none of the events from the Labyrinth base game or Labyrinth Awakening are in play at the beginning of a scenario. Sometimes you'll run across event cards that reference other events from Labyrinth, the base game, or Labyrinth Awakening. This is basically used for the longer campaigns where you perhaps begin the game at an earlier year and continue the game through to this expansion. So there's an event card that places new cells. It's called the Al-Baghdadi Event, and it works in a similar way to the training camps event from Awakening. And basically the way it works is if the Al-Baghdadi Event marker is removed by the US play of that card, the cells stay on the board until they're eliminated, but they're not returned to the track. And if you're playing the campaign game and you've played training camps before, they don't add it all together. So the only advantage is that if you have both cards down, both event markers have to be removed in order to trigger that inability to return to the track. There are some events that allow the placement of a Caliphate capital, which is similar to the Awakening expansion. If the Caliphate capital is on the board in a way similar to the events listed in the Awakening expansion, it will block the play of some Forever War events in any of the countries within the Caliphate. And here's some examples of those cards. Some event cards reference jihadist personalities. And what that means is it's an unassociated card with the name of the person, usually a portrait there as well. And the US event typically results in the removal of that card from the game. And Trump tweets make it into this game because they have been very influential over the last number of years. Several event cards require Trump tweets to be on, and here's an example of a few of these cards. And that's basically all of the additional rules that you need to worry about. There are 3 scenarios and then the full campaign game that you can explore. The first is the 2016 scenario, the fall of Isil. The second is Trump takes command, which is the 2017 scenario. And then the third is an alternate history for 2017, which is if Hillary Clinton had won the presidency. Interestingly, they have provided some rules for the extended campaign game, which begins right after 9/11 and continues up until the present day. So you can play one deck of each. So you would play the Labyrinth base game deck through, then the Awakening expansion deck through, and then finally Forever War deck all the way through. Normal victory conditions apply. However, interestingly, you can also play an optional game where if both players agree, you can just play the full game all the way through, all 3 decks, and you score points based on the variety of victory conditions that you achieve during play. So every time that for example, the U.S. player is able to eliminate all the jihadist cells and have a total of 12 resources as good and 15 countries as fair good at some point in the game, then he would score 3 points. And basically you score a maximum of 1 point per condition. So if you, for example, as a jihadist player, you triggered 2 separate WMDs in the US, it only counts as 1 point. You're looking to get a variety of victory conditions and try and essentially win the game by every way possible. So that certainly would give a good perspective on how the world has changed in the last 20 years or so. And that's something that could be very interesting to play through. Of course, you do also have the option of shuffling all 360 cards together into one large deck and basically play that one all the way through. So that'll be another interesting way that you can set up the game to play this incredible campaign all the way through. There is another scenario that begins basically in 2007 called Surge: The New Way Forward, and this was actually one scenario that was presented in C3I magazine, and it basically looks at U.S. policy towards Iraq and Afghanistan between 2007 and 2012. So it doesn't use any cards from Forever War, but it's basically included so that if anyone missed the magazine, they can give this scenario a try. This has been an overview of Labyrinth Forever War. Hopefully this video gave you a good glance at the new gaming possibilities that have opened up with this expansion. I'm looking forward to giving it a try, and I hope you are too. This is Legendary Tactics, and thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.